And away we go, episode 1276 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Monday, March 9th, 2026. It is day one of the legal tampering period in the NFL's 2026 offseason. This is when free agency truly gets going, and the widespread expectation is that the Washington Commanders are going to truly get going. So much out there about what our team, with its ample salary cap space and ample urgency of going 5-12 in the 2025 regular season, will be doing. Did you happen to see what NFL insider Jordan Schultz on Sunday morning had in a post on X? Quote, "Should he not re-sign with the Ravens? There is a belief among teams that the Commanders will heavily pursue center Tyler Linderbaum in free agency, per multiple sources," end quote. Baltimore Ravens center Tyler Linderbaum, widely considered the number one center in free agency this offseason. How about this from ESPN NFL insider Jeremy Fowler in an ESPN.com piece that came out on Sunday morning? Headline, quote, "NFL free agency buzz, latest on wide receivers, running backs on the move," end quote. Fowler mentioned the Commanders is being in the mix for a bunch of prominent free agents, including Indianapolis Colts receiver Alec Pierce, Green Bay Packers receiver Romeo Doubs, Tampa Bay Buccaneers receiver Mike Evans, Seattle Seahawks running back Kenneth Walker III, and Carolina Panthers running back Rico Dowdle. Quote, "The Commanders were listed frequently in our running back and receiver breakdowns above. The pulse inside the league is that this year could be Washington's most active offseason of the Adam Peters era that began in 2024. The Commanders have an interest in other positions such as cornerback, edge rusher, and possibly tight end. Washington has a roster with holes, nearly $90 million in cap space, and star quarterback Jaden Daniels on a rookie deal. So while the Commanders might not spend big on every position, they will be a presence," end quote. What is about to happen with our team? Hello and welcome to this Monday installment of the Al Galdi podcast, on which we talk Commanders on every episode, no matter the time of year. Next segment, discussion of a number of moves by / items with the Commanders as the legal tampering period is beginning, including why people should hold their fire on the outrage over the team releasing as opposed to trading center Tyler Biadasz off him signing with the Los Angeles Chargers, why the Commanders reportedly re-signing receiver Treylon Burks and kicker Jake Moody makes sense, and a proper epitaph on the trade for cornerback Marshon Lattimore off the team releasing him. The following segment, a conversation with a good friend of this podcast, Commanders analyst Mark Bullock of Bullock's Film Room, which you can find at markbullock.substack.com. Mark will give us high-level, all-22 style analysis of potential targets for the Commanders in free agency at tight end, running back, edge defender, and defensive back. And also on the show, I'll talk Washington Capitals, Washington Wizards, and college basketball. We have a lot to get to with the Caps, so I'll give you my thoughts on them trading defenseman John Carlson and center Nick Dowd as part of making 5 trades in the lead-up to Friday's 2026 NHL Trade Deadline. And I'll give you a breakdown of a disappointing loss for the Caps, a 3-1 loss at the Boston Bruins on Saturday afternoon in a big game from a standing standpoint. Our rebuilding and tanking Wizards, they now have lost 8 consecutive games, a 138-118 loss at the New Orleans Pelicans on Sunday night, and a key loss in the tank. And during our college basketball segment, we'll preview Conference Tournament Week for the major Division I men's basketball teams of the Mid-Atlantic region, and I'll get into a heartbreaking loss for Navy at home on Sunday afternoon in the semifinals of the 2026 Patriot League tournament. But we now are less than a week away from Selection Sunday for the 2026 NCAA tournament. Before we get to feedback, news from 2026 Washington National Spring Training in West Palm Beach, Florida. Reports on Sunday afternoon that the Nats have agreed with free agent starting pitcher Zach Littell on a 1-year contract. The 2026 season will be his age 30 season. He in his MLB career has pitched for a variety of teams and has been used as both a starter and a reliever, but he in each of the last 2 regular seasons made at least 29 starts, and he over the last 2 regular seasons accumulated 6 wins above replacement per Baseball Reference and an ERA plus of 111. 100 is average, 111 is good. He over the last 2 seasons has been a good starting pitcher. The guy, when ready, figures to be a definite for the Nats rotation. The question is, will he be ready for the start of the regular season? Opening day is less than 3 weeks away, March 26th. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me, the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. From T. Kennedy on X on Adam Peters this offseason, writes T. Kennedy, whatever Peters does, it seems that it will be met with more skepticism this time around, given the backdrop of the 2025 season. Thank you for that, T. Kennedy. I agree. This is Adam Peters' third offseason as Commanders GM. He in the 2024 offseason was in the honeymoon phase. He in the 2025 offseason was basking in the afterglow of the team's Renaissance 2024 season. He in this 2026 offseason will be receiving no benefit of the doubt off the team's disappointing 2025 season. Now, I still have faith in Adam Peters. I still would say that his work as Commanders GM in free agency and trades has been more good than bad. His work as Commanders GM in NFL drafts is to be determined, but the roster still needs a lot of work, and neither the roster nor the coaching this past season was as good as we thought / hoped. So yeah, the ultra positive feelings for Adam Peters for the last two off seasons are gone for this off season. You know the saying, let Adam cook? You remember that? That saying was used a lot the last two off seasons. Let Adam cook. I suspect that we, this offseason, will not be hearing and reading that phrase all that much. Let Adam cook. But hopefully he does cook. This is a big offseason for Adam Peters as Commanders GM. Hey, thank you to all of you who have given this podcast a 5-star rating and who have written nice reviews of the podcast. You on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify can both rate the podcast and write reviews. 5-star ratings are very much appreciated. Positive reviews are very much appreciated. So, to be clear, the structure of this week in the NFL is as follows. We from Monday, March 9th at 12 p.m. Eastern until Wednesday, March 11th at 4 p.m. Eastern have what is known as the legal tampering period, the period during which teams are permitted to contact and enter into contract negotiations with the certified agents of external players who are set to become unrestricted free agents this offseason. And then we this Wednesday, March 11th at 4 p.m. Eastern have the start of the NFL's 2026-2027 league year, which marks when teams this offseason can begin officially signing external players who have become unrestricted free agents via expiring contracts, and marks when teams this offseason can officially begin executing trades of players. We are anticipating a lot of Washington Commanders news this week, and we this past Friday had a bunch of news. The Los Angeles Chargers, they this past Friday morning announced having signed center Tyler Biadasz as an unrestricted free agent. This off the Commanders this past Tuesday afternoon, March 3rd, having announced having released Biadasz. We this past Friday morning had reports that kicker Jake Moody had agreed to re-sign with the Commanders as an unrestricted free agent. We over last Tuesday, March 3rd and Wednesday, March 4th had reports that the Commanders were non-tendering Moody, who had been set to be a restricted free agent this offseason. The Commanders this past Friday afternoon announced having signed edge defender Deatrich Wise Jr. to a contract extension. We last Wednesday night had reports that the Commanders had agreed with Wise on a one-year contract extension. We this past Friday afternoon had reports that the Commanders had agreed with receiver Treylon Burks on a one-year contract extension. He had been set to be an unrestricted free agent in the 2026 offseason, and the Commanders this past Friday afternoon announced having released cornerback Marshon Lattimore. Let's address each item one by one. So with Tyler Biadasz, the Chargers reportedly signed him to a 3-year, $30 million contract. That, if legit, is a substantial contract for a player who just got released, begging the question of whether the Commanders could have traded Biadasz as opposed to just releasing him and losing him for nothing. And there already has been plenty of bashing of Commanders general manager Adam Peters for releasing as opposed to trading Tyler Biadasz. But to that, I would say this. Hold your fire until we see the true numbers for this Tyler Biadasz contract with the Chargers. Did people not learn anything from the news of the contract extension for Commanders receiver Terry McLaurin this past August? The initially reported terms, almost certainly leaked by the agent, were very different than the actual legitimate terms. These initial terms of the Biadasz contract with the Chargers almost certainly were leaked by his agent. The actual legitimate terms aren't out yet. When they do come out, let's see how they compare with this initial reporting of a 3-year, $30 million contract. So I'm holding my fire on ripping Adam Peters for releasing as opposed to trading Tyler Biadasz. With Jake Moody, so what I on last Wednesday's show, episode 1273, suspected might happen is happening. The team non-tendered him as a restricted free agent, but is re-signing him as an unrestricted free agent, as doing so is cheaper than re-signing him as a restricted free agent. So the team is saving some money. This is smart salary cap management. I am glad that the team is re-signing Jake Moody. He did a good job for the team this past season, but I do want competition for Moody. He should not just be handed the kicker job. We on last Thursday's show, episode 1274, talked about the Commanders re-signing Deatrich Wise. He was to be a key part of the team's defense this past season, but he in the team's 27-18 loss at the Green Bay Packers on Thursday Night Football this past September 11th suffered a season-ending quadriceps injury. The 2026 season would be his age 32 season. You know, there's no guarantee that Wise even makes the Commanders' initial 53-man roster for the 2026 season, but if he's healthy, he certainly would seem to have a good chance of making the initial 53, but this almost certainly is a low-money, one-year contract. Nothing wrong with that. I am glad that the Commanders are re-signing Treylon Burks, who likewise gets a one-year low-money contract. The reporting is that Burks is getting a one-year contract worth a maximum of $4 million. That is a nothing contract. Treylon Burks was taken by the Tennessee Titans with the number 18 overall pick in the 2022 NFL Draft out of the University of Arkansas, but Burks was a bust for the Titans. He, over 3 regular seasons with the Titans, played in just 27 of a possible 51 games and totaled just 53 receptions and just 1 receiving touchdown. The Titans this past October 7th announced having released Burks from the reserve/injured list of him having suffered a fractured collarbone during training camp. The Commanders this past October 17th announced having signed Burks to the practice squad. He, for the Commanders in the 2025 regular season, played in 8 games, totaling 10 receptions for 130 yards and a touchdown on 22 targets. You know, his stats were not as good as I think some people think, but he showed promise, and the touchdown was spectacular. It happened in the Commanders' 27-26 overtime loss to the Denver Broncos at Northwest Stadium on Sunday Night Football on November 30th. Burks had 1 reception for 5 yards and a touchdown on 4 targets and playing on 66% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. On a 3rd and goal at the 5, quarterback Marcus Mariota had a 5-yard shotgun touchdown pass to Burks with 9:58 left in the 3rd quarter. Burks, on a fade, made a sensational one-arm catch with his right arm while falling down back first and being tightly covered by cornerback Riley Moss. The hand with which Burks made the catch, his right hand, included a middle finger on which he had recently undergone surgery that caused him to miss a game as he, in this game, returned from a 1-game absence. What a play that was by Treylon Burks. I'm a fan of the Commanders having bought low on Burks. He's talented. He was good enough to be taken by the Titans with that number 18 overall pick in the 2022 NFL Draft. And with the Commanders releasing Marshon Lattimore. So look, we on this podcast have had plenty of Marshon Lattimore conversations. This was a trade that just did not work out, but there is important context with the trade that does not get discussed enough. The Commanders on November 5th, 2024, what was 2024 NFL Trade Deadline Day, announced having acquired Lattimore via trade with the New Orleans Saints. The Commanders traded a 3rd-round pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, a 4th-round pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, and a 6th-round pick in the 2025 NFL Draft to the Saints for Lattimore and a 5th-round pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. But there is important context here. The Commanders going into the trade had 2 third-round picks in the 2025 NFL Draft. The team's initial 3rd-round pick and a 3rd-round pick that was acquired from the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Commanders trading of receiver Jahan Dotson to the Eagles in August 2024. That third-round pick was obtained by the Eagles from the Miami Dolphins, who at the time of the Commanders' trade for Lattimore were just 2-6 in the NFL's 2024 regular season. So that third-round pick was a lot better than the Commanders' initial third-round pick, as the Commanders at the time of this trade for Lattimore were 7-2 in the NFL's 2024 regular season. However, the third-round pick that the Commanders traded to the Saints was the Commanders' initial third-round pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, not the third-round pick obtained from the Eagles via the Dolphins in the Jahan Dotson trade. So the Commanders, in trading for Lattimore, traded the lesser of their two 2025 third-round picks. Also, the 2025 sixth-round pick that the Commanders traded to the Saints originally belonged to the Saints, so the Commanders got it via trading interior defensive lineman John Ridgeway and a seventh-round pick in the 2025 NFL Draft to the Saints on August 29th, 2024. And the Commanders used the 2025 fifth-round pick that they got from the Saints to acquire receiver Deebo Samuel Sr. via the trade with the San Francisco 49ers in March 2025. All of this stuff matters when assessing what Adam Peters gave up to get Marshon Lattimore. But all of that said, the trade was a whiff from a standpoint of what the Commanders got from Lattimore. Lattimore with the Commanders missed a lot of time and was not good. He came to the Commanders having played in just 24 of a possible 43 regular season games since the start of the 2022 season. He, at the time of being traded to the Commanders, was dealing with a hamstring injury. He, due to the hamstring injury, played in just 2 of a possible 8 games for the Commanders in the 2024 regular season, though he did then play in all 3 of the team's games in the postseason for the 2024 season. Lattimore in the 2025 regular season played in just 9 of the Commanders' 17 games as he suffered a season-ending torn ACL in the team's 38-14 loss to the Seattle Seahawks at Northwest Stadium on Sunday Night Football this past November 2nd. Lattimore for the Commanders had some really rough performances, including in the team going 2-1 in the playoffs for the 2024 season. Lattimore for the Commanders was a penalty machine. He, over 14 regular season and postseason games for the Commanders, committed 15 penalties, including 13 accepted penalties, and Lattimore has had legal trouble. He, this past January 7th, was arrested following a traffic stop in Lakewood, Ohio, was arrested on a possible charge of carrying a concealed weapon. The police report listed a 9mm Glock as evidence and listed a second possible charge of improperly handling firearms in a motor vehicle. Lattimore also was arrested in Ohio in March 2021. He was initially charged with a felony for receiving a stolen firearm. The felony charge was later dismissed, but Lattimore pleaded guilty to carrying a concealed weapon, a misdemeanor. He received 1-year probation and a suspended 180-day jail sentence. The trade for Marshon Lattimore was a worthwhile gamble. He, at the time of being traded to the Commanders, had accumulated 2.38 Pro Football Focus wins above replacement since the start of the 2017 regular season, ranking number 10 among all NFL cornerbacks during that time. But the trade, quite clearly, did not work out.
Today's show is sponsored by Strawberry.me. Let me ask you something. Do you think championship athletes got to the top by guessing? No, they had coaching. Every elite athlete has a coach watching their form, calling the plays, and spotting the blind spots they can't see themselves. That's how championships are won. So why are you trying to win your career without a coach? You're grinding, hoping for the promotion, trying to read the politics, guessing your next move. That's amateur hour. If you want to perform like a pro, you need coaching. Strawberry.me matches you with a professional career coach who breaks down your game film. They help you negotiate the raise, navigate workplace politics, and execute a strategy that actually works. Stop riding the bench in your own life. Go to strawberry.me/podcast50 to get 50% off your first coaching session. Strawberry.me, because pros don't guess, they get coached to win.
The Washington Commanders on this day one of the legal tampering period in the NFL's 2026 offseason are loaded with salary cap space, but of course also are loaded with needs. As our team comes off a disappointing 5-12 2025 regular season, it is a pleasure to welcome back to the Al Galdi podcast Commanders analyst Mark Bullock. Mark is exceptional at talking Commanders from an X's and O's standpoint. He does tremendous Commanders all 22 breakdowns. You can read his work on his Substack, Bullock's Film Room, which you can find at markbullock.substack.com. A lot of great content on Mark's Substack, including a number of pieces on potential free agent fits for the Commanders. So Mark has written for The Athletic and for The Washington Post. He also is a Commanders fan. You can follow Mark on X at Mark Bullock NFL. Hey, Mark, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thanks. How about you?
Doing well. The NFL's free agency madness is beginning. There are so many directions in which the Commanders could go in free agency. That said, what would you like to see from the team in free agency?
Yeah, I think I'd like to see them be a little bit more aggressive in pursuing some younger talent that, like in the year one of free agency under Adam Peters and Dan Quinn, they went after guys like Tyler Biadasz and Frankie Louvu and Dorrance Armstrong, guys that were kind of 26, 27, and they were willing to give out sort of 3-year contracts, longer-term contracts. Then they obviously still did a bunch of those 1-year contracts, and Peters talked about, while they're still trying to build the depth and the foundation of the roster, they will be cycling through those 1-year contracts. And I actually don't have a problem with that. I think that's a smart way of going about it, is you give yourself roster flexibility from year to year by doing that. And then you don't tie yourself into a bunch of bad contracts. But at a certain point when you find a free agent class where there's guys that are sort of 24, 25, 26 hitting the market, you do have to be willing to pay a little bit more to get those guys locked down and become foundational pieces. So you got to be careful not to prioritize the flexibility over not having any sort of foundational pieces, because then you're not really building anything. And so I would like to see them target some of these younger guys and try to get a few more of those kind of, as I say, the Biadasz and the Louvu and the Armstrong kind of contracts, where it's, it doesn't have to be top of the market 5-year deals where they're giving out $100 million to every player, right? But a sensible sort of 3-year deal where you get a guy locked down for the prime years of their career, and they can come in and be a solid, sensible starter for you. I mean, like, I know Louvu had a down year last year, but those three that we look at, like Dorrance Armstrong was on his way to a career year and had a really strong first year. Tyler Biadasz has been a really good center for them. And Louvu had an excellent first year and obviously a down second year because he was kind of being misused and played out of position out of injuries to other players. But those were all 3 solid pickups and kind of core foundational pieces of the team. So I'd like to see them go and try to find a few more of those. That's obviously easier said than done. But I think there are a few guys out there that fit that kind of mold, that they could kind of bring in and improve that core roster, core part of the roster.
NFL free agency is not what it used to be. So many good players now don't make it to free agency. They instead get tagged and or get signed to contract extensions. But there are good players in free agency. And to me, free agency, unlike the NFL draft, is where a team should address positions of need. An NFL team, to me, should do the draft via the best player available philosophy. Free agency, to me, is where a team should get need specific. So tight end. ESPN NFL analyst and former Redskins safety Matt Bowen, he in an ESPN.com piece that came out this past Friday afternoon, ranked the top 100 players available in free agency. The tight ends in Bowen's top 100. Number 19, the Baltimore Ravens' Isaiah Likely. Number 38, the Tennessee Titans' Chigoziem Okonkwo, who went to the University of Maryland. Number 61, the Kansas City Chiefs' Travis Kelce. Number 63, the Philadelphia Eagles' Dallas Goedert. Number 70, the Cleveland Browns' David Njoku. Number 73, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' Cade Otton. Number 83, the Baltimore Ravens' Charlie Kolar. And number 96, Jonnu Smith, who the Pittsburgh Steelers this past Thursday afternoon announced having released. No Kyle Pitts. The Atlanta Falcons on February 24th announced having placed the non-exclusive franchise tag on Pitts. Who for the Commanders do you like among the free agent tight ends?
Yeah, Well, the three guys that I wrote about on my Substack were obviously Kyle Pitts, who's now been tagged, so that's not happening, and then Ravens tight end Isaiah Likely and Bucks tight end Cade Otton. And I quite like both Likely and Otton. I think they both offer something a little bit different. Likely is kind of more of a move tight end that, he's not an inline blocker necessarily. He's not someone that you'd have as your wide tight end that you line up in line and have him do all of that kind of stuff. He's more of what you would call an F tight end, or some people might call it a joker tight end, where he's the second tight end on the field and he moves around. He's almost more of a slot receiver kind of thing, similar to how Washington used to use Jordan Reed. Now, obviously, he's not as good as Jordan Reed, but in that kind of fashion, the way they used him. And he's someone you can move around, and he's quite a fluid athlete in terms of he's able to run good routes and get in and out of his breaks quite quickly. And so that makes him an interesting option to do kind of underneath stuff as a tight end. You can line him up as I say in the slot or as a tight end, and you can have him run those kind of quick hitting underneath routes. He can run those kind of pivot routes and those like return routes where he breaks outside and then returns and pivots back inside, and he can run those choice routes and those kind of things where he can win quickly inside and use his footwork to separate quickly from coverage underneath, especially against kind of linebackers and safeties that he gets matched up on. And that is something that Washington will obviously lose without Zach Ertz. So that's something that he could bring and be a really good piece. So that would be an interesting one. But he wouldn't have he's also got good kind of straight line speed, so he'd be able to bring a vertical element to the tight end position as well, which they didn't have with Zach Ertz. But he wouldn't have the same. He doesn't have the same feel that Zach Ertz has for, if there's a zone coverage, finding the kind of hole in zone coverage, sitting it down, attacking leverage kind of thing. He could obviously develop that, but that's not his game just yet. Cade Otton has more of that kind of feel of, he can attack leverage. He can find those kind of holes in zones and make himself quarterback friendly. But he also has a little bit of route running to him as well. And I think Otton's a little bit more well-rounded. He's not necessarily your number one blocking tight end, but he's someone that could be effective as a good. He's a decent blocker. He's not a great blocker. He's not John Bates level, obviously, but he's a decent blocker. So if you're looking to go to the kind of the trend of the league right now, where you look at the guys that were in the playoffs running deep, it was like the Rams and the Seahawks, where they were using 2 to 3 tight end sets, but those tight ends were capable receivers. If you wanted to get into that kind of look where you've got John Bates and a Cade Otton as your 2 tight ends and maybe a Ben Sinnott at fullback, then you could be, you could get into those heavy situations and run the ball behind those guys, but you could also then split them out if you get heavy personnel from the defense. And Otton is capable of lining up a receiver and kind of he has the experience of being what you would call like an X tight end, where you isolate the tight end on one side, and then you have your 3 receivers on the other side, and that can kind of give you a man zone indication pre-snap and that kind of thing. So Otton would give you that kind of flexibility. So I do quite like Cade Otton as well. At the 2, I feel like I would possibly lean slightly more towards Likely, just because he's a little bit younger and a little bit more of a receiving profile, which I think they need at that tight end position. But I think both of them could be pretty good options for them.
We're examining potential free agent targets for the Commanders as we speak with Commanders analyst Mark Bullock of Bullock's Film Room, which you can find at markbullock.substack.com. Spending money on free agent running backs is tricky, but doing so can work out. The New York Jets this past Tuesday, March 3rd, announced having placed a non-exclusive franchise tag on running back Breece Hall, but there in this free agent class still are some intriguing backs. So looking at the Matt Bowen Top 100, number 16, the Seattle Seahawks' Kenneth Walker III, number 22, the Jacksonville Jaguars' Travis Etienne Jr., number 44, the Carolina Panthers' Rico Dowdle, number 47, the Pittsburgh Steelers' Kenneth Gainwell, number 84, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' Rashad White, who played with Commanders quarterback Jaden Daniels at Arizona State over the 2020 and 2021 seasons. Should the Commanders steer clear of the free agent back, or should our team be swimming in these waters?
I wouldn't necessarily steer clear. I would have been interested in Breece Hall if he doesn't get tagged. I do like Bill, and I do like Chris Rodriguez as kind of as your kind of workhorse style backs. They do lack a receiving option there, and I wouldn't trust necessarily either of them as a pass protector at this point in time. Rodriguez can do it. Bill is, still very raw in that regard. Now you could bring back Jeremy McNichols. As I say, he's a very good pass protector at this point in his career, Jeremy McNichols, but he doesn't necessarily offer you the consistent explosiveness as a pass catcher. So you could, I think that's the thing that you'd be looking for from a running back in this group, because I think Bill and Rodriguez could handle the workhorse back role between them, and take the bulk of the carries. Now you could try to just go, hey, we really want to lean into this run game. Let's go get Kenneth Walker. He's obviously an exceptional running back, and everyone saw just how good he was in the playoffs and down the stretch, where he finally got the kind of the bulk of the carries when the other back went down injured, and he kind of just took over the games and kind of took them to the playoffs and the Super Bowl, and was excellent. So I wouldn't necessarily fault them for that, but I think he's kind of limited in terms of, I don't think he's necessarily someone you want on every down. He's an okay pass catcher. He's not a great blocker. So I wouldn't necessarily want him in the third down back role. And if you then sign him, you suddenly got three guys that are all kind of more better runners than they are pass catchers. And you've got no one for the third down back role, and you've got three guys for the workhorse back role. So it's like, I don't know if that's necessarily the right fit for them. Rachaad White is the guy that everyone kind of links with Washington because of his relationship with Jaden Daniels. And that would make some sense, because when I watched him, I was thinking the guy that I compared him to was kind of what Jeremy McNichols has done in Washington. And I don't mean that as an insult. I think some people might take it that way, but it's not, because McNichols has never put a foot wrong for Washington. He's always stepped in and done well, and he's stepped in a variety of roles. And I think White can do that. I think he's someone that if Bill's having a bad game, or he's had two fumbles, and Chris Rodriguez is injured or whatever, White could step in and be the workhorse back if you need him to be. But he's also a capable receiver and a capable pass protector. So he's someone that could step in day one and be your third down back, but he also has the flexibility to do the other stuff if you need him to, which is very similar to what McNichols does. I think he's just got a higher ceiling than what McNichols does. So if you wanted that kind of upgrade on what McNichols brings, I think White would make a lot of sense. And obviously the relationship with Jaden Daniels is one that, helps that. But obviously you're not making that move just because of that relationship. I think he does have value. I just wonder if that running back market is going to get very expensive, with guys like Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker on there. How much are you going to be willing to pay for Rachaad White over how cheap Jeremy McNichols would be? How much is the upgrade worth? That would be the kind of question there.
Edge defender, big time need for the Commanders. A lot of notable edge defenders in this free agent class. Those listed in the Matt Bowen Top 100. Number 1, the Cincinnati Bengals' Trey Hendrickson. Number 3, the Philadelphia Eagles' Jalen Phillips. Number 6, the Los Angeles Chargers' Odafe Owe. Number 21, the Los Angeles Chargers' Khalil Mack, though we on Saturday night had reports that he is re-signing with the Chargers. Number 25, the New England Patriots' K'Lavon Chaisson. Number 27, the Seattle Seahawks' Boye Mafe. Number 37, the Buffalo Bills' Joey Bosa. Number 50, the Indianapolis Colts' Kwity Paye. Number 60, Bradley Chubb, who the Miami Dolphins reportedly are releasing. Number 62, the Baltimore Ravens' Draymond Jones. Number 74, the Buffalo Bills' A.J. Epinesa. Number 79, the Atlanta Falcons' Arnold Ebiketie, who's a local. He went to Richard Montgomery High School in Rockville, Maryland, and then went to Albert Einstein High School in Kensington, Maryland. Number 81, the Cincinnati Bengals' Joseph Osai. Number 86, the Green Bay Packers' Kingsley Enagbari. Number 89, the New Orleans Saints' Cameron Jordan. And number 95, the Carolina Panthers' Al-Quadin Muhammad. Should the Commanders be willing to spend big money on one of these guys?
I think they probably need to find someone there, yeah. The thing with this system with Durante Jones is, if he is going to run the kind of Vikings-esque system, when you look at what the Vikings did last year, those edge guys had production, but they weren't like premier pass rushers. They were good pass rushers, but the pressure came from being able to blitz and send lots of different rushers and disguise blitzes by, the edge guys would quite often drop into coverage. You look at like an Andrew Van Ginkel there, that he would quite often drop into coverage to allow an inside linebacker to blitz or a safety to blitz. So the pressure came from the disguise and the multiple different blitzes, and being able to blitz 5 or 6 guys and overwhelm offenses that way, rather than rushing your front 4 and trusting those guys to get home consistently. So it's not like the system requires them to have a dominant front 4 pass rushers. Now, obviously, if you have a dominant edge rusher, that helps a lot, and it means that you don't have to get into all the blitzes. It gives you more flexibility. But for that reason, I don't think they necessarily have to go all out for, the big name on the market, like a Trey Hendrickson, right? But I do think you want to find a guy that can give you good production on the edge, but is also athletic enough to be able to drop into coverage and do the kind of coverage disguise stuff that they were doing last year in Minnesota. I think that's a big part of what this defense is going to be. And so that limits the amount of guys that make sense as a fit, because this is going to be probably a 3-4 defense where those guys are going to have to be stand-up linebackers that can drop into coverage. Now, when you look at the guys that have done that, Jaden Phillips is one, and he'd be probably the top of the list in terms of, he's probably the best pass rusher out of them, and probably the best guy that can drop into coverage, is athletic enough to do that and has done that. I just wonder whether, are the Eagles really going to let him hit the market, given they gave up a 3rd-round pick from 6 months ago? I don't think so. Then the guy that I've circled back to, I didn't write about him, but the guy I've circled back to is Odafe Owe, who I have some concerns about. His production really jumped at the end of the year when he got traded to the Chargers, and that's good. Obviously, you want a guy to be productive, but it's like, why wasn't he productive before that? Was it kind of a last minute jump in contract years kind of thing? But when I went back and rewatched him, I saw a guy that, he's obviously very explosive and very athletic, and offers something as a pass rusher. And we saw with the Chargers, and the kind of book on him was he was kind of a little bit more limited in how he was used with the Ravens, whereas the Chargers kind of let him go and rush a little bit more, and that's where the production jumped. But we also saw the ability to drop into coverage and the athleticism to, despite his size, be able to drop into coverage and actually look not bad doing that. And it wasn't something they did a ton, but it was something they did 2 or 3 times a game, where they'd blitz off the other side and drop him into coverage. And that's exactly what the Vikings would do with their linebackers. So that one would make a lot of sense to me. But obviously he's a supreme athlete, and he's 26, 27, something like that. So that's going to be a significant cost. But that would be one I'd be willing to make. Boya Mafe is in a similar mold. I don't love the pass rusher. I think his pressure numbers are really good. When I watch him, there is definitely some pass rush juice there, but I feel like the moves aren't consistently developed. And so I worry that he's someone that is more suited to being that kind of third rusher, which is what he is in Seattle, where he's a guy that rotates in as their kind of third edge rusher, and he does really well in those situational rushes. But if he's then paid to be, your number 1 edge rusher, your number 2 edge rusher, is that a role too far for him? That would be my concern with him. I'd be more comfortable, obviously, if Jaden Phillips hits the market, I'd be jumping on that, but I'd be more comfortable taking the shot on Owe than I would be on Mafe.
No position group for the Commanders this past season was worse than the secondary. It's going to be so interesting to see what the team's new defensive coordinator, Durante Jones, thinks about 2 key defensive backs who this past season regressed big time. Cornerback Mikey Sainristil and safety Quan Martin. Defensive backs in the Matt Bowen Top 100. Number 9, New Orleans Saints cornerback Alontae Taylor. Number 11, Seattle Seahawks cornerback Reek Woolen. Number 14, Kansas City Chiefs cornerback Jalen Watson. Number 23, Kansas City Chiefs safety Brian Cook. Number 29, Philadelphia Eagles safety Reed Blankenship. Number 31, Jacksonville Jaguars cornerback Greg Newsome II. Number 36, Chicago Bears cornerback Nashawn Wright. Number 42, Chicago Bears safety Jaquan Brisker. Number 45, Seattle Seahawks safety Kobe Bryant. Number 51, Chicago Bears safety Kevin Byard III. Number 52, Tampa Bay Buccaneers cornerback Jamel Dean. Number 54, Arizona Cardinals safety Jalen Thompson. Number 55, Jacksonville Jaguars cornerback Monteric Brown. Number 58, Indianapolis Colts safety Nick Cross, who's a local, went to DeMatha Catholic High School in Hyattsville, Maryland, and then went to the University of Maryland. Number 69, New York Giants cornerback Cordell Flott. Number 72, Las Vegas Raiders cornerback Eric Stokes. Number 77, Los Angeles Rams cornerback Kobe Durant. Number 80, Seattle Seahawks cornerback Josh Jobe. Number 82, Buffalo Bills cornerback Taron Johnson. And number 91, New England Patriots safety Jalen Hawkins. A lot to choose from. Who stands out to you?
The one that stood out to me, and I was put on my radar because Jones coached him at LSU, was Cordell Flott with the Giants. And I went and watched him play. I was like, okay, well, I'll watch a couple games on him as a preview to free agency. And the two games I picked were the divisional games against the Cowboys and against the Giants. Sorry, not against the Cowboys and the Eagles. He plays for the Giants. And I thought, well, I'll see how he does against those. Both teams have really good receivers. And he was outstanding in those two games. He had an interception against the Eagles, like nearly a pick six, or maybe it might have been a pick six. I think it was that turned the game. And he showed all the kind of traits that you would look for in a corner for this system, where he's really smart, he's really good from off, where he plays with vision, he understands the kind of pattern matching stuff, he plays good zone, he has really good instincts. He had a really good rep against the Cowboys where he was the outside corner, and it was kind of a smash concept where the outside receiver kind of goes underneath and the slot receiver runs a corner route over the top of it. And that concept is designed to get that outside corner to bite up underneath and be able to throw over the top of him. And he showed really good instincts where he was covering his receiver, but you could see the quarterback. He had the vision of the quarterback to be able to see, okay, this is going behind me. So he peeled off, and he would have intercepted it if the safety hadn't got there first. Cordell Flott was one that really stood out to me, thinking, actually, he was superb in those games. Like, that's some of the best cornerback play I'd seen this season in those two games. Now, I don't know what the rest of the season was like, but that was one that was like, okay, he's good in those games. He's capable of being very good, and he has a history at LSU. His last year at LSU, he played with Deontay Jones. So that is one that I thought I'd be interested in. That's one I'm keeping an eye on. There were a couple of other good corners. Safety, I wonder whether, Jones was so quick to praise Will Harris and Quan Martin. I wonder whether they're going to be super aggressive in pursuing safeties. I think they'll want a third safety, but I wonder whether he's quite happy with those two. So I'm not sure they'll be super aggressive in going after a safety.
Commanders analyst Mark Bullock of Bullock's Film Room, which you can find at markbullock.substack.com. Mark, thanks. We'll see what our team does, and we'll talk soon.
Of course, talk soon.
All right, the Nace Law Group, Accident and Injury Lawyers. It has been a Washington, D.C. institution for decades. If you feel that you've been wronged, if you think that you've been wronged but aren't sure, contact the Nace Law Group, Accident and Injury Lawyers, and schedule a no-obligation appointment. Call 202-902-7611 or visit WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. Founded in 1979, the Nace Law Group offers fierce advocacy on behalf of medical malpractice, birth injury, and personal injury victims. Led by the great Chris Nace, the Nace Law Group is focused on providing exceptional care and counsel for those who need such things the most. The Nace Law Group fights for what it believes in: you, your family, and your future. You with the Nace Law Group have an experienced advocate on your side. The Nace Law Group has secured millions of dollars in verdict and settlement amounts for clients to better enable them to care for themselves and their families. Call 202-902-7611 or visit WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. That's 202-902-7611 or WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com, and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. The Nace Law Group, Accident and Injury Lawyers. There is no front office in Washington, D.C. area sports that deserves a benefit of the doubt more than the Washington Capitals front office. The Caps have made the Stanley Cup playoffs in 34 of the last 42 seasons. The Caps haven't had to rebuild in more than 20 years, and Caps president of hockey operations Brian McClellan and Caps senior vice president and general manager Chris Patrick in recent years have engineered a successful retool. But these last few days for the Caps have been trying, no doubt. The 2026 NHL Trade Deadline was this past Friday, March 6th at 3 p.m. Eastern. The Caps, in the lead-up to the deadline, made 4 NHL trades and 1 minor league trade. The 4 NHL trades were highlighted by the Caps being big-time sellers, trading away 2 mainstays in defenseman John Carlson and center Nick Dowd. And then the Caps, in their lone game over the weekend, lost at the Boston Bruins 3-1 on Saturday afternoon in a big game, and the Bruins lost at the Pittsburgh Penguins 5-4 in overtime on Sunday, giving the Bruins another point. So the Caps in the NHL's 2025-2026 regular season now are 31-26-7, good for 69 points. Now 7 points behind the Bruins for the Eastern Conference's second of 2 wildcard spots, and the Caps are 8 points behind the New York Islanders for third in the Metropolitan Division as the top 3 teams in each division make the Stanley Cup playoffs. So regarding the many trades made by the Caps in the lead up to this past Friday's trade deadline, so 4 NHL trades and 1 minor league trade. Looking at the 4 NHL trades, trade number 1, the Caps this past Thursday morning announced having traded center Nick Dowd to the Vegas Golden Knights for a second-round pick in the 2029 NHL Draft, a third-round pick in the 2027 NHL Draft, and goaltending prospect Jesper Vikman. Dowd had been with the Caps since signing with them as an unrestricted free agent on July 1st, 2018. He played for him for 8 seasons. He, for the Caps, was a good fourth-line center, capably succeeding Jay Beagle as the Caps' fourth-line center. But Dowd is under contract through just next season, and this is his age 35 season. This, to me, was a good trade for the Caps. They got good value for an aging fourth-line center in Nick Dowd. Trade number 2. The Caps on Friday morning at 1:10 a.m. Eastern announced having traded defenseman John Carlson to the Anaheim Ducks for a conditional first-round pick in either the 2026 NHL Draft or the 2027 NHL Draft, and a third-round pick in the 2027 NHL Draft. The condition of the first-round pick is as follows per a press release from the Caps, quote, should Anaheim qualify for the 2026 Stanley Cup playoffs, Anaheim will transfer its 2026 first-round pick to Washington. If Anaheim fails to qualify for the 2026 Stanley Cup playoffs, Anaheim has the option to retain its 2026 first-round pick and transfer its 2027 first-round pick to Washington instead, end quote. I am and always will be a Caps fan. John Carlson was a warrior for the Caps. He was taken by the Caps with the number 27 overall pick in the 2008 NHL Draft. He played for the Caps for 17 seasons. He is the franchise's all-time leader in the following regular season categories among defensemen: goals, assists, points, and games. No Caps fan is happy to see John Carlson gone, but Carlson is set to be an unrestricted free agent this coming offseason, and this season is his age 36 season. Like the Nick Dowd trade, the John Carlson trade was a good trade for the Caps. They got good value for an aging defenseman and a pending unrestricted free agent in Carlson, who, by the way, they conceivably could sign back this coming offseason. Trade number 3, the Caps on Friday afternoon announced having traded a 4th-round pick in the 2026 NHL Draft to the San Jose Sharks for defenseman Timothy Liljegren. The Caps, in making this trade, bought low on a guy in Liljegren who was taken by the Toronto Maple Leafs with the number 17 overall pick in the 2017 NHL Draft and is in his age 26 season. Liljegren played in 197 games for the Leafs over 6 regular seasons, 2019-2020 through 2024-2025. Caps head coach Spencer Carberry, he was an assistant coach for the Leafs from July 2021 to May 2023. And trade number 4, the Caps on Friday evening announced having traded a 6th-round pick in the 2026 NHL Draft to the Vancouver Canucks for forward David Kampf. This is Kampf's age 31 season. He's set to be an unrestricted free agent this coming offseason. This trade was made just to get the Caps through the rest of this season, but Kampf is a guy who Spencer Carberry also knows well. Kampf played for the Toronto Maple Leafs for 4 seasons, 2021-2022 through 2024-2025. Again, Carberry was an assistant coach for the Leafs from July 2021 to May 2023. The trade that has gotten the most attention is the John Carlson trade. Chris Patrick did a press conference on Friday evening. This was Patrick on why he made the trade.
Really hard call. Very emotional, obviously, for the team, for management, for John, for his family. But with where we are in the standings, and an opportunity to get some good assets for the future, it felt like the prudent thing to do. It's. I mean, there might not ever be another defenseman for the Washington Capitals like John Carlson, and that's not lost on us. He's been an ultimate professional, a massive part of the community, and obviously his on-ice product has been second to none. So not a decision that we came by lightly, but something that we felt was when you looked at it rationally, the right decision to make for our organization going forward. Again, just thank John for everything he did for our organization, and hope for the best for him in Anaheim.
And I thought that was a very good explanation by Chris Patrick for why he traded John Carlson. Again, I am and always will be a Caps fan. Again, no Caps fan is happy to see Carlson gone. But again, Carlson is set to be an unrestricted free agent this coming off season, and this season is his age 36 season. The John Carlson trade was a good trade for the Caps. The John Carlson trade was a smart trade by the Caps, and that the Caps, in making this trade, operated out of intellect, out of logic, out of rational thinking, and not emotion, is encouraging, because that's how a front office should behave. Emotion is for fans. Intellect, logic, rational thinking, those things are for your front office, and it's encouraging to see the Caps behave in that manner. Now, as mentioned, the Caps announced the trade at 1:10 a.m. Eastern on Friday. An odd, bizarre time to announce a trade, no doubt, but many times in sports, things happen late at night. The Caps actually have received criticism for announcing this trade in the overnight hours. The criticism, to me, is ridiculous and indicative of people who don't understand how this stuff works. But Chris Patrick on Friday evening addressed the criticism. Here you go.
One thing I do want to address is I think there's some perception out there that we were disrespectful to John and in the timing of the deal or how we told him. And I think it was actually, we tried to approach it just opposite. We tried to be as respectful as possible as we could. We respect John, and we didn't want to do anything that we felt was disrespectful to him. So, we had 2 options at midnight when the deal finally got agreed to, but hadn't yet been processed by the league. Option 1 is wait till the morning, leaving, 10 hours for a leak to get out, which happens with basically every deal at the trade deadline. And then John wakes up to a phone full of text messages and tweets and Instagram posts of a deal that he never heard from us about. Option 2 was to push through last night and call John at 1 a.m. and if he doesn't answer, leave him a message and tell him to call me. And so that's what we did. And I left him a message. I talked to him at 6 in the morning, and we moved on. So at no point were we trying to be disrespectful to John and how we communicated to him the deal. We were trying to do just the opposite. We were trying to be as respectful as possible.
Yeah, and that right there was a perfect rebuttal by Chris Patrick to the criticism of the Caps announcing the John Carlson trade at 1:10 a.m. Eastern on Friday. The criticism of the Caps for that has been absurd. Also, from Chris Patrick on Friday evening was him getting emotional and talking about that early morning phone conversation with Carlson on Friday. Take a listen.
It was... Yeah, it was sad. Yeah, it was hard. He was upset, and so was I. But like I said, he's a pro, and I was expecting him to be angry, and he wasn't angry. He understood, and I think he was just sad that it ended this way. So.
Well, a salute to John Carlson, a salute to Nick Dowd, two terrific players for the Caps, but the team did what it needed to do. And yeah, things are not looking so good for the Caps making the postseason this season. The 3-1 loss at the Boston Bruins on Saturday afternoon was the Caps' third consecutive loss, with each loss being a regulation loss. So the Bruins won their 12th consecutive home game. The Caps lost the puck possession battle. They had 23 shots on goal to the Bruins' 30, and per natural stat trick had 38 5-on-5 shot attempts to the Bruins' 44, including 6 5-on-5 high-danger shot attempts to the Bruins' 7. The Caps starting goaltender was their number one goaltender, Logan Thompson. He was good. He stopped 27 of the 29 shots on goal that he faced. The Caps went 5 for 6 on the penalty kill and 0 for 3 on the power play. A bright spot was Alexi Protas. He returned from a one-game absence caused by a personal reason, which was the birth of a daughter. He served as the Caps' second-line left wing, and he scored the Caps' lone goal.
12:55 to go in the second. 1-0 Bruins here. Chychrun stick handling in the Bruins zone out to the left point. Steves half-heartedly coming out, now a little bit more aggressive. And Chychrun going to turn on the Jets, come in along the right side, keep it, shoot it off the right pad, they score! And in the bumper, it's put home by Alexi Protas. Got it on his stick on a great drive to the front of the nets. Protas with a goal, Chychrun with a mighty primary assist. We're tied at 1 here in Boston.
John Walton and Ken Sabrin on the Washington Capitals radio network. Alexi Protas scored an even-strength goal, 7:21 into the second period, giving him 21 goals in this regular season. He did commit a first-period holding minor and did have a game-worst tying 3 giveaways. Caps top-line left wing Alex Ovechkin, he had no points and just 2 shots on goal, though he was number 2 on the Caps in total shot attempts with 7, and was number 4 on the Caps in 5-on-5 shot attempt percentage for the game per natural stat trick at 59.09. The Caps with Ovi on the ice in 5-on-5 situations in the game had 13 shot attempts versus allowing 9 shot attempts. So the Caps' healthy scratches for this loss at the Bruins on Saturday afternoon were defenseman Dylan McIlrath and winger Ivan Miroshnichenko, who is back. The Caps on Friday evening announced having recalled Miroshnichenko from their AHL affiliate, the Hershey Bears. So here was Spencer Carberry during his post-game session with reporters on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I give our guys credit. Thought we fought, thought we stuck to the game plan for the most part. So you can't fault that. And with what we've gone through as a group, our guys deserve a lot of credit now with the way that the game goes. We're right there, and I think it's that game is very much so a microcosm of our season. And in a couple of respects, right? Special teams, we go 1-0, we lose that battle. Okay, they had more opportunities, but you still can find a way to, and our penalty kill did a good job. So this isn't a slight at either the power play or the penalty kill, it's just the facts of how the outcome comes. And then we're in that game, we get a big kill to start the third period, and we're learning to stay with it. And that's the key, is like, even though Boston's low event, nothing's happening, the expected goals on both sides are basically nothing, right? It's a no low event game, and in those games that are tight checking, there's not a lot of opportunities. You just have to stay with it. And if it goes 1-1 and goes to overtime, no big deal. You're comfortable in that scenario, but we just lose momentum there for a 5-minute stretch. Just lack a little bit of discipline with our game, start to turn some pucks over, start to get a little bit stubborn with some decisions, and it's a breakaway and it's in the back of your net. You're down 2-1 and you're chasing the game. So, again, give our guys a lot of credit for the way that we played and the way we competed. But we're learning as a team and individually. We'll get better at it. We'll continue to work with our guys on it of getting better in those situations. You have to manage the game. You have to stay disciplined inside of what you're doing, and you can't deviate. And they didn't. We cracked tonight, and they end up getting the 2 points.
All right, next up for the Caps, home to the Calgary Flames, Monday night at 7. Well, the Washington Wizards have moved up to being tied for the third worst record in the NBA. And yes, I did say up because when you're a tanking team, as the Wizards are, getting worse is moving up. One game for the Wizards over the weekend, a 138-118 loss at the New Orleans Pelicans on Sunday night. The Wizards lost their 8th consecutive game. They trailed for all of the third and fourth quarters. The Wizards in the NBA's 2025-2026 regular season now are 16-47, tied with the Brooklyn Nets for the third worst record in the NBA. The Pelicans in this regular season now are 21-45. That is the 6th worst record in the NBA. So this loss at the Pelicans on Sunday night was a key loss in the tank. This was yet another game in which a bunch of key guys for the Wizards were out. Keyshawn George did not play for a third consecutive game due to a partial tear of the UCL in his left elbow. Jameer Watkins did not play for a third consecutive game due to a left ankle sprain. Tristan Vukcevic did not play for a fourth consecutive game due to a left thigh contusion. Anthony Davis did not play for a 14th time in 14 games since being acquired by the Wizards via trade on February 5th, what was 2026 NBA Trade Deadline Day. He's not playing due to a finger sprain on his left hand. D'Angelo Russell did not play for a 14th time in 14 games since being acquired by the Wizards via the Anthony Davis trade. Russell is being listed as not being with the Wizards. He may never play for the Wizards. And Cam Whitmore is done for the season due to right shoulder deep vein thrombosis. Back for the Wizards was Alex Sarr. He returned from a 10-game absence caused by a right hamstring strain. He, in 17 minutes, 35 seconds as a starter, had 7 points and 4 rebounds. He went 1 for 3 on threes and 2 for 4 on twos. Did not attempt a free throw. So Sarr was easing his way back in, but 56 of the Wizards' 118 points came from 3 players: Trae Young, Trey Johnson, and Will Riley. Trae Young, in his second game for the Wizards in just 17:44 as a starter, had 17 points, 8 assists versus 4 turnovers and 4 rebounds. He went 3 for 5 on threes, 1 for 1 on twos, and 6 for 8 on free throws. Trey Johnson, he was the Wizards' leading scorer. He, in 22-24 as a starter, had 20 points and 4 rebounds. He went 4 for 7 on threes and 2 for 2 on free throws. Did go just 3 for 6 on twos. And Will Riley had yet another good game. He, in 25-26 as a reserve, had 19 points and 3 rebounds. He went 8 for 11 on twos and 3 for 3 on free throws. Did go 0 for 1 on threes and did have no assists versus 4 turnovers. Next up for the Wizards at the Miami Heat, Tuesday night at 7:30. And let's talk college basketball. We have arrived at Conference Tournament Week, the week in which the majority of conference tournaments in Division I men's basketball take place. However, some conference tournaments already are taking place, like the Patriot League tournament. And we, on Sunday afternoon, had a heartbreaking loss for Navy in the Patriot League tournament. The number 1 seeded midshipmen lost to number 4 seeded Boston University 73-72 at Alumni Hall in Annapolis, Maryland on Sunday afternoon. And the semifinals of the Patriot League tournament, Navy lost on a miracle ultra deep 3 from just inside the half-court line by 6'4" true freshman Chance Gladden as time expired in the second half. Navy senior point guard 5'11" Austin Bonini, he took an inbounds pass, drove nearly the length of the floor, and connected on a driving layup for a 72-70 Navy lead with 3.6 seconds left in the second half. Boston then immediately got off an inbounds pass to Gladden. He dribbled behind his back to get by a Navy defender just before reaching half court and then got off the game-winning 3. Unreal. And there was controversy with this game because the game clock appeared to be slow to resume upon the Bonini driving layup for the 72-70 Navy lead with 3.6 seconds left in the second half. Don't know if a quicker clock would have made a difference here, but Chance Gladden ended up getting off what proved to be the game-winning three with plenty of time left on the clock. Navy came into this game 26-6 overall this season, tied for the second most wins by a Navy team in a season in what is John Perry's first season as Navy head coach. The Mids have had a great season, but winning the Patriot League tournament was a must in order to make the NCAA tournament, and they did not win the Patriot League tournament. This has not been a good first season for Buzz Williams as Maryland head coach. Maryland is the number 17 seed in the 2026 Big Ten tournament, which is happening at the United Center in Chicago. It's happening March 10th through the 15th. There are 18 teams in the Big Ten. Yes, 18 teams in a conference called the Big Ten. But Maryland is the number 17 seed. We have number 17 seeded Maryland versus number 16 seeded Oregon on Tuesday evening at 5 in the first round. Maryland concluded a 2025-2026 regular season in which the Terrapins went 11-20 overall, including 4-16 in the Big Ten, with a 78-72 loss to number 11 Illinois at Xfinity Center in College Park, Maryland on Sunday. I do want to highlight this from that game. Maryland's leading scorer was 6'4" Texas A&M transfer and redshirt freshman Andre Mills, who really has come on as this season has gone on. Hopefully he doesn't transfer in the coming weeks, but he in 34 minutes as a starter had 30 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists versus 3 turnovers. He went 8 for 10 on twos and 8 for 10 on free throws. Did go just 2 for 8 on threes, but Andre Mills scored at least 14 points in each of the Terps' final 6 games in this regular season. Maryland remained without its best player, 6'9" Texas A&M transfer Pharrell Payne. He did not play for a 20th consecutive game due to a right knee injury. Also, 6'3" Indiana transfer Miles Rice was not available to play for a 10th consecutive game. The Big East tournament is happening at Madison Square Garden in New York City for, you ready for this, a 44th consecutive year. The 2026 Big East tournament is happening from March 11th through the 14th. Georgetown is the number 11 seed. Will take on number 6 seeded DePaul in the first round on Wednesday night at approximately 9. Georgetown concluded a regular season in which the Hoyas went 14-17 overall, including 6-14 in the Big East, with an 80-79 win over Providence at Capital One Arena on Saturday night. The Hoyas snapped a 7-game losing streak, one despite blowing a 12-point first-half lead, but a tremendous game for 7-1 St. John's transfer Vincent Iwuchukwu. He was Georgetown's leading scorer. He in just 27 minutes as a reserve had 25 points and 10 rebounds. He went 1 for 2 on threes, 8 for 11 on twos, and 6 for 6 on free throws. Did have 1 assist versus 3 turnovers. So Georgetown remained without 6'4" Arizona transfer KJ Lewis. He's done for the season due to a left ankle injury that he suffered in the Hoyas' 76-60 loss to Marquette at Capital One Arena on February 24th. Also, Georgetown was without 6'5" Baylor transfer Langston Love for an 11th consecutive game. The 2026 ACC tournament is taking place at Spectrum Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's taking place from March 10th through the 14th. Virginia is the number 2 seed and has a bye to the quarterfinals. The Cavaliers' first game in the tournament is on Thursday at noon. Virginia Tech is the number 12 seed. The Hokies' first game in the tournament is against number 13 seeded Wake Forest in the first round this Tuesday night at approximately 7. Number 13 Virginia concluded a regular season in which the Cavs went 27-4 overall, including 15-3 in the ACC, with a 76-72 win over Virginia Tech at John Paul Jones Arena in Charlottesville, Virginia on Saturday afternoon. Virginia Tech wrapped up a regular season in which the Hokies went 19-12 overall, including 8-10 in the ACC. UVA improved to 44-14 all-time against Virginia Tech in regular season games in Charlottesville. UVA never trailed, began the game on a 12-0 run, held a 17-point lead at 22-5 with 12:49 left in the first half. Tech did then win the rest of the game 67-54. We have the 2026 Atlantic 10 tournament, which is taking place at PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh. It's taking place March 11th through the 15th. VCU is the number 2 seed and has a bye to the quarterfinals semifinals. So the Rams' first game in the tournament is on Friday evening at approximately 5. They in St. Louis were A-10 regular season co-champions. VCU concluded a regular season in which the Rams went 24-7 overall, including 15-3 in the A-10 with a 68-62 win at Dayton on Friday night. George Mason is the number 5 seed and has a bye to the second round. The Patriots' first game of the tournament is on Thursday afternoon at approximately 2. They concluded a regular season in which they went 23-8 overall, including 11-7 in the A-10 with an 86-57 win over number 25 St. Louis at Eagle Bank Arena in Fairfax, Virginia on Saturday, though St. Louis had little for which to play. George Washington is the number 9 seed and has a bye to the second round, in which the Revolutionaries face number 8 seeded Fordham Thursday morning at 11:30. GW concluded a regular season in which the Revolutionaries went 17-14 overall, including 8-10 in the A-10 with a 68-62 loss at Loyola Chicago on Saturday afternoon. We have the 2026 MEAC tournament, which is taking place at Norfolk Scope Arena in Norfolk, Virginia. Is taking place March 11th through the 14th. The MEAC tournament features Howard as the number 1 seed. The Bison in the regular season went 21-10 overall, including 11-3 in the MEAC to win the MEAC regular season title. Howard, as the 1 seed, has a bye to the semis. So the Bison's first game in the tournament is this Friday at 6 p.m. And we have the 2026 Conference USA tournament, which is taking place at Probst Arena in Huntsville, Alabama. Is taking place March 10th through the 14th. The Conference USA tournament features Liberty as the number 1 seed. The Flames in the regular season went 25-6 overall, including 17-3 in Conference USA to win the Conference USA regular season title. They concluded their regular season with a 79-72 win over Sam Houston at Liberty Arena in Lynchburg, Virginia on Saturday afternoon. Liberty's first game in the tournament is on Wednesday evening at 6:30. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Tuesday show, episode 1277. We'll have plenty for you on the Washington Commanders' in-depth reaction to what they do on day 1 of the legal tampering period in the NFL's 2026 offseason. Also on Tuesday's show, I'll talk Washington Capitals. They're home to the Calgary Flames Monday night at 7. Have a great rest of your Monday, and I'll talk to you on Tuesday.
It was sad. It was hard. He was upset, and so was I. But like I said, he's a pro, and I was expecting him to be angry, and he wasn't angry. He understood